The online culture wars of Jaguar's relaunch feel like a million years ago now that we, or more accurately, editor Nick, has had a passenger ride in Jaguar's new electric luxury GT. But today we get to take a big step forward because we, you and I, get to actually drive the thing because we want to find out whether this big electric Brit, whether it drives and steers like a proper Jaguar. And we're not just doing it in any old place, are we? We're out here in Sweden at Arjeplog, where Jaguar Land Rover has a test facility with test tracks out on a frozen lake. This is the location where its greatest cars get developed and tested.
And not just to see how they deal with freezing Arctic conditions, but also so engineers can fine-tune on the limit handling and powertrain performance. Honestly, despite what everyone on the internet thought a year ago, this bold new electric GT is being developed like all Jags before it. Only now, there's a secret new weapon in the team. You might know him. He's called Matt Becker, and he's been the vehicle dynamics genius behind some of the best handling Lotus and Aston Martin models of recent times. And best of all, he's been working on Jag's GT project from the very start.
Now, there is so much to tell you about this car, some of which you'll already know, but there's actually quite a lot to add. So I really want to give you all the details before we jump behind the wheels. It's 5.2 meters long, so it's longer than a BMW M5, for example, and it's a bit bigger than a Porsche Taycan as well. And it weighs something in the region of 2.7 tons, thanks partly to the fact that we have about 120 kilowatt hours of battery between those wheels. The battery is actually split into several parts, and that actually helps to give it a perfect 50-50 weight distribution. That's also helped by the fact that we've got two electric motors at the rear, which, by the way, produce 950 horsepower, and then we've got one at the front, which is capable of 350 horsepower. And altogether, because you don't just add them together, we've got a power output of just over 1,000 horsepower and a torque figure of 1,300 newton meters. Oh, and talking in numbers, I can also confirm that this car has a torsional rigidity of 50 kilonewtons, which is apparently a lot more than Jaguar has done before. The previous strongest car was the I-Pace, and that was 36 kilonewtons. So this is a big old jump, and part of that is down to some very clever engineering in the structure, and also the fact that the battery itself in the floor is a stressed component. It's actually part of the structure. So there's some really clever, practical packaging in this car, and that also carries into the interior. We can't show you the details yet because, well, it's basically all covered up. But what I can see is that where they've cut out a space in the floor, where the battery is split in the rear, there's a lot of space for passenger footroom. So this really should offer limo-like space inside. There are actually charge ports on both sides of the car, and you can, apparently, at 200 miles in just 15 minutes, which is very impressive, given that this car has about 400 to 430 miles of capability in terms of range. So that's really impressive, given the size of the battery.
This car is really all about big numbers, and well, that's probably going to be the case when it comes to pricing, which is expected to be in the region of £120,000 to £150,000 when the GT arrives on road in 2027. But honestly, having seen the genius engineering solutions that are going into its bespoke Jaguar electric architecture, you really get the impression that this could be a bit of a game changer. My highlights include a standard fit all-wheel steering system, as well as a twin rate and height adjustable air suspension setup for maximum comfort and strong body control. Even the variable ratio steering system is mounted further forwards in the nose, and with 3 mounting points, it should maximise feel at the wheel. And the car's tri-motor setup? Well, that can go from a sensible 40-60 power split to basically being rear-wheel drive with 87% of power going to the rears. Yeah, sounds a bit mad, doesn't it?
Right, this is the most exciting moment of my year. I know it's the start of the year, but I have been looking forward to this day for a long time because this is surely the most exciting car, not just of 2026, but dare I say it, of the last few years and certainly the next couple of years as well, because this is so important for Jaguar. But before I tell you what it's like to drive, I should say, if you're enjoying this video, don't forget to give the video a like, and of course leave a comment below if you think we should start doing more videos like this. Right, let's see what it's like to drive, shall we? We're out on the frozen handling circuit, which is nice and twisty, and what I'm trying to feel is, does it feel like a Jaguar? Does it just feel like another performance EV? Think of the Taycan Turbo S with its basically punch you in the back of the head performance and razor sharp handling, well, this is very different, but not in a bad way, in just a nice, well, it's just a different character car way, because what it has and what it does, which is quite unique, and I think something Jaguar and Alfa Romeo as well, to give them their credit, they're really good at doing, and they've always been good at doing, and that is to create cars that when you turn them into a corner, off power, off throttle, they start to rotate into a corner. And then with Jags, they've flown really beautifully, haven't they? And Jaguar's actually dived into their history books and actually driven some really historic cars, everything including the E-Type apparently, to understand what Jaguars should handle like and remind themselves what they need to instill in this car. And with all the technology at hand, that 3-motor setup, the torque vectoring at the rear, the clever air suspension technology, and this amazing, super torsionally stiff structure, well, what they've achieved somehow in a 2.7-ish ton car is Jaguar-like handling, genuinely. It really does tip into a corner, start to rotate, but in a really nice fluid way. And then you can use the power. Bear in mind, we have 1,300 Newton meters of torque if we want to use all of it, and obviously over 1,000 horsepower as well. But you can use that performance because of the technology, because of the electronics, and even with the electronics off in this particular prototype, just because of the cleverness of the way the power's juggled, you can use it to continue that, well, that flow. It's a beautifully balanced car, honestly. Yeah, you can drive it like a fast luxury GT for sure. Now, it's too early, obviously, I'm not on the right surface to start talking about genuine steering feel and brake pedal feel, but I do know from having driven another prototype that the steering is, you know, the weighting does feel quite nice. It doesn't feel, it's definitely not overreactive. It has a variable ratio rack, which is something I know engineering guru Matt Becker wasn't so keen on at the start, but actually he says he's really impressed by the system. And I have to say, it doesn't feel unusual, which is the key thing. It feels predictable, and it doesn't matter whether you're going through a tight corner or a slow corner, you kind of know where you're at with the car. Is that a Scandi flick? I don't know if that counts. Not quite. But yeah, it's just predictable, manageable. The regen as well is set by default to a 0.07G setting, which is comparable to engine braking. And so it does mean when you come off the power, the car will naturally slow you down a bit. And so it feels natural in that sense. It doesn't snap on and off, but you can ramp up the regen. I must admit, I'd love to have shift paddles here to do that on the fly. That's my favorite thing. But there is a screen over here, so you can do it when you're changing your driving modes, going between a city or out on the open road. So you can ramp it up all the way up to a 1-pedal mode, which is good. Good for city driving.
Also good is the ride. Alright, my test on a frozen lake doesn't exactly replicate British speed humps and potholes particularly well, but Nick's earlier passenger ride backs what I can feel, which is that the car has a weighty suppleness over bumps and even a little bit of body roll when you carry speed into bends. That's not actually by accident, because engineers decided against using active anti-roll bars in order to give the GT a more natural feeling, and handily, having no active system saves energy.
That weight transfer as well is really good. The way when you get it from a left to a right slide, on this surface at least, you know, this is circa 2.7 tons, but it really manages its weight well. You can really sense two things actually, that you're sat in the middle of the car in effect, you're sat nice and low, and that the weight is nice and low. That roll center and all the other technical terms that they've been giving me today, you can really feel that inherent balance in the car. It has a natural advantage, this bespoke platform, over its rivals. And so could this be the best driver's electric car overall, not just electric GT?
Well, that will depend on whether you want your GT to set your hair on fire or be slightly more relaxed. In contrast to the ballistic Taycan Turbo S, Jag's GT is much smoother with its delivery of power, but it's also quicker to respond than a Rolls-Royce Spectre with an estimated 0 to 62 time of 3 and a bit seconds. When you do open the taps, it is genuinely rapid, gaining speed without pause to an anticipated 155 mph top speed. And honestly, with the clever digital systems on, the traction, even on snow, is unbelievably good.
So, having driven this car out on the very slippery surface of Arjeplog, I can tell you, somehow it still feels like a proper Jaguar. We've got that inherent balance, we have that wonderful fluidity from left to right slides, and of course, even though we have 1,300 Newton meters of torque, it is actually quite manageable, especially when the systems are on, but even when the systems are off. These guys know what they're doing, of course. Jaguar is famed for its fantastic chassis and performance handling, but This is all new, and yet it still feels inherently Jag. I cannot wait to drive one of these cars out on, of course, grippy tarmac roads where it's a little bit warmer. But for now, first impressions are very, very promising, and best of all, this car feels very, very different to what's currently available. Yes, the Porsche Taycan Turbo S is a car that will shift your organs like nothing else. And yes, you've got these very expensive Rolls Royces and BMWs and Mercedes that will be very comfortable, but this somehow does something different to all of those cars. It feels properly Jag. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to give it a like, and of course leave us a comment below to let me know what you think of the car.